Carmentary, everybody. Neil here with you. Back in my car, another nighttime drive. Help keep me company while I make my way home. Tonight, I want to talk about my magic board. I had a comment, I had two comments actually. I had a comment the other day, I believe it came through Instagram, that said, why don't you talk about your magic board? And that is because I did an episode a couple days ago where I talked about the Diggin' magazine, which their new issue is titled Magic Board, and it's people talking about their personal choice of, you know, what is your magic snowboard that you just love to ride because it's so amazing for whatever reason. So I got that comment, and then I got another comment, question. Someone asked me to compare the Field Earth board that I ride to the Genten boards. The comment or question was worded slightly different, but that's the gist of it. So I'm going to try to tackle that because it's a good combination. The Field Earth board that I ride a lot and I've had for quite a few years now is a board called the X1. If you go on their website, you can see it. There's a little blurb about it. It is a tapered board. Let's start with that. It's got a wider nose. It tapers down to the tail. It has a 3D spoon shape in the nose area, so it's rounded. It is, I don't want to say really narrow, because that makes it sound like a race board or something. But it is definitely more narrow at the waist than a lot of what you would consider free riding powder boards. So as I said, it has a tapered shape. It is meant for directional riding. It is not meant for any fakey switch kind of stuff going on. What else can I say about the board? It has, I don't know what you would call the camber. You're gonna have to go on the website and look it up. It could be like, I believe it has like a little, it's either camber or like a flat camber. If you lay it on the ground, you don't see a big arch by any means. It doesn't come up off the ground. It's like flat on there. But there is a little bit of camber. That's my way of explaining it. The tail, it just kind of runs off flat. There's like maybe a tiny little raise at the back, but not like a big upward raise on the tail. Beautiful shape though. Like a kind of a classic, I don't even know how to describe it. Basically, it's kind of the dark horse of the whole catalog at Field Earth. It's kind of one of those boards you go, you look at their catalog, and I think everybody sort of, you graduate towards the real extreme, you know, the fish-shaped boards, the swallowtails, the ones with the big wide noses, really fat waist, and you're like, wow, that thing's gonna be incredible in the powder. And, you know, that's right, that's what it's made for, that's what those boards are designed for. They're just more eye-catching, and I think the X1 is just sort of, people look at it and they're like, eh. They just don't grab it. I don't know why, but for some, I think it was the length. I think the owner of the brand, Motomura-san, who I know and have worked with, I think he was the one who said, you should ride the X1. And Nakagawa Shinya, who is a rider who I filmed for many years in the CAR DANCHI movies, he has ridden for Field Earth for a long time. He was riding the X1 for quite a long time, and I think he still rides it. He really likes it. And I love Shinya's riding style. He is just one of the, it's just exquisite. His riding is really beautiful. So he was always saying good things about the board, and I started riding it as well. And right away I loved the board. So why do I love the board? With that tapered shape and with that slightly more narrow waist compared to other powder boards, basically you get a really responsive board. You get like a sports car. But the sports car is also a Cadillac, right? With that nose. You've got that kind of big nose with the spoon shape, the 3D shape. So you've got this loose, maneuverable Cadillac up front, and you've got this super tight, ultra responsive Porsche underneath your back foot. So to me, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You're floating on the powder for sure with that nose and that length. But you're also able to make, really quick decisions in tight trees, places where you need to react really quick. So that is, I think, ultimately why I really like that board. And that is why I would choose that as my magic board, because it just never seems to let me down. Every board seems to have a certain condition that it doesn't like. Or you can put it the other way. Every board has a condition that it excels in, right? And if you take it out on that day, you're going to have a great day. But when you go to the mountains a lot, and like I do, a lot of times I'll have a backpack on, I got a camera in there, I'm trying to capture some images. It's not just about pure free riding for me, so I'm kind of biased in that way. I have to be able to, stop suddenly or traverse, get to a new position, go down a little bit, traverse back. There's all these little maneuvers. And I want to be really flexible, really maneuverable. But then when I do get a little 100-yard, 100-meter section where I can let loose and make some nice turns, I want to be able to enjoy those turns as much as possible, because that's what life is all about. So for me, the X1 really does that. I'm 185 centimeters. I weigh about 75 kilos. With all my gear, that's up to like 85 kilos. So I do need a long, kind of big board to support that weight and that size. My feet are size 30 centimeter, like a 12-inch boot. So people often ask, okay, well, what about your feet hanging over the board? It's a more narrow shape. It tapers. What do you feel about that? And I was really looking at my feet today, kind of thinking about that. And I put, just to let you know, 27 degrees angle on my front foot. 6 degrees angle, positive, on my back foot. So my back foot does not have a lot of angle. I really don't like more than that. It feels weird to me. It's like 6, 3, 0 is a little too flat, but usually around 6. And yeah, you could say my foot is hanging off the board a little bit. And on really hard, super packed, icy conditions, if you really get it up on an edge, there could be a chance to like get some toe drag and slip out. But I usually don't go riding when it's that hard packed, to be honest with you. My front foot at 27 degrees angle, no problem. And it's wider up there anyway. So today, I was really conscious of the board, thinking about that, because I knew I would try to answer these questions. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is the 3D aspect of the field earth boards. A lot of people kind of get sketched out on it when they first try it. And they're like, what is up with this 3D shape? Every field earth board is a little different, so you can really go into the details and study it carefully. Some of them it's super pronounced and you can see the curvature right away. Some of the boards you don't even notice it, but I've talked to the owner and he told me there's like pretty much across the whole line, he puts like a millimeter or a 0.5 of a millimeter or something of roundness, 3D shape, even, under your feet. So that's why I love those boards for many reasons. That tiny bit of 3D shape really keeps the board from hooking up or catching an edge. And you see it in beginners and kids. My 3 daughters have all ridden field earth boards and continue to ride field earth boards. He came out with shorter boards designed for kids, little kids. Got them right away. And boy, could you see the difference. You could really see the difference. The kids love those boards. They turn so easy. It's got just enough looseness. The hardest part when learning to snowboard is to go from your heel edge over to the toe edge. With skiing, you've got the pizza, you've got the triangle, and you're learning to just shift your weight, and that makes you turn. It's quite different. With snowboarding, everybody pretty much starts out on the heel edge and they're side slipping down the hill. To get that board to face downhill and then to go over to the toe edge is a real hurdle. I think everybody who snowboards can remember that. And it's a little scary, right? You're like, as soon as you point it downhill, the thing just wants to take off. You're leaning back, the edges is hooked into the snow, it won't release. It's really hard to get it over to the other edge. So the field earth boards, with that little bit of 3D shape, it makes that swing from one edge going over. It's like a roll. You're releasing from the heel edge and you want to get it in to the toe edge, and you don't want that back edge behind your heel to be hooking into the snow and keep you from going over. That's the best way I can explain it. So that little bit of 3D shape, I think, is just absolutely brilliant. Now, for the more intermediate to advanced people, a lot of times the problem is people will come from a background of riding, boards with a lot of side cut, a lot of camber, and they're used to having to kind of do like these little jump turns to release the edge and get into the other side, and then immediately that side carve and the camber digs into the snow and sort of like autopilots you into the next curve. So when you get on a 3D shaped board, you're like, whoa, where's my edge? Why isn't this thing like digging into the snow and pointing me towards the side of the course, What you have to realize is on the really 3D shaped boards, like the Art Ride series that I like to ride a lot, designed by Uemura. In the beginning, it feels like you can't get it on an edge. It's like, where's my edge? It's there. You just have to lean into it a little bit more. That's my advice. Same thing with people coming from Genten boards as well. If you ride a Genten board or a Moss or one of the other Japanese brands, they've got a flat camber or some kind of camber, or there's all different cambers, but they're pretty much a classic snowboard shape with a flat base. They don't really have a 3D design to them. So although they're surfy and they're great powder boards, they don't have that feeling of the roll with the 3D shape. So a lot of people kind of get sketched out. One more thing to talk about, and this is kind of really down in the weeds of the 3D shape, but traverses. Maybe you get a hang, you get used to it, you ride in the 3D shape, you lean into your turns more, you're like, oh, I can really get up on an edge, and you really enjoy that roll, that smooth roll between your turns, and you're like, oh, this is all good. Then you get into a situation where you have to do a long heel side traverse or a long toe side traverse. It happens a lot here. You've got some great backcountry terrain, you're down in the gully, and then you're next to a river, and you're having to traverse out for what seems like ages. And that is where, again, people kind of freak out over the 3D shape. This is where you have to learn to use the torsion of your board. You can't just lean into your edge more in that kind of a situation because you're trying to go across the hill. You're really traversing. You're not going fall line. When you go fall line, you can just sort of lean into that edge more, get a little bit of angle. It works. When you're trying to traverse, you need to use the torsion. That means you need to push down on your toe of your back foot and pull up on the toe of your front foot if you're going on a heel side traverse. That is the easiest way to explain it. And I think the heel side traverse is really the hard one. The toe side traverse is easier because you can just sort of get up on your toes. You know, you're lifting up your heel, you're really planting that toe edge, and you can really kind of grip the mountain as you're going across. With the heel edge, what happens is gravity wants to pull you down. You're on this little track, you're going over these little whoops, and suddenly you find yourself falling off the track, being pulled down into the valley or the river. It's not a good feeling. So that is kind of a learned experience, but even on the really extreme 3D shaped boards, it's totally possible, it's totally doable. Once you get used to it, you'll have no problem with it. And it's a great feeling. You just got to understand that you need to use the torsion. You got to twist the board. By twisting the board one way or the other, you can really plant your heel edge underneath your back foot into the snow and use the tail as like your grip. Does that make sense? I hope so. Whew. Is there anything else? Yeah, basically today I rode at Rusutsu Resort. I did a little mountain debrief earlier. You may have heard that. And I rode the X1, and not only is it a great board, but I've had it tuned up 2 years in a row now by my buddy Gaku in Higashikawa, who's a pretty incredible tune-up technician right now. He's really got some experience under his belt. Incredible wax job. So yeah, maybe we can wrap on that. The other aspect of the 3D designs and the field earth boards that I really, really like, and maybe it's the magic spice that makes it the magic board, is it's very, very fast. With or without a good tune-up. Straight out of the factory, just put a little layer of wax on there, or I highly recommend the liquid wax that Field Earth sells now, especially for the 3D shaped boards. They have like 3 different temperature grades or something. You can go out and find it. Basically, you pour a little of this wax on a cloth and you rub it into the board, and you're good to go. I am to the point now, I used to love doing like hot wax on my board, and I was really into it. Screw that crap, man. You're more likely to ruin your board, or ruin your day at least, by using the wrong wax, doing the wrong technique, melting the PTEX on your board because your iron's too hot. There's so many things that can go wrong, and did go wrong for me for many years. And now I'm to the point of like, forget it. Pay the money, give it to the pro. They put it in those thermo bags. The wax lasts for like 2 months. It's so fast, it's incredible. It's worth every penny. Or go get this liquid wax. It's a no-brainer. You can't ruin your board. You don't need an iron. You can brush your board, get the garbage out of it, do all that. You rub this liquid wax on. It's this new thing that's come out in the last couple of years. And it works great. That stuff is amazing. None of this scraping your board. And a big complaint I always had with the 3D shaped boards is they're hard to wax. They're so curved that the iron and the paper, it just doesn't, yeah, you got to do so many strokes back and forth to get it on there. It's a pain in the butt. So I highly recommend the Field Earth brand liquid wax, or another brand of liquid wax, whatever. Use that, wax your board, and you're good to go. But the point is that the 3D shape, there's less contact with the snow. than a flat board. I think that's easy enough to understand. It's curved. It's like a boat. So you've got this narrow contact point with the snow. And apparently that contributes to the speed of the board. The more contact you have, the more friction or room for friction, and that's what's going to slow you down. So that is another great aspect. Fast, maneuverable, super floaty. Yeah, I think I covered everything. We could go on for a while, but I think that's enough. Okay. The field earth boards are pretty limited in their numbers, especially the last couple of years with the pandemic, factory delays. It's a small brand run by one guy. He does pretty much everything himself. If you want one or you're interested in one, there are some shops that stock them around Hokkaido. You can go to their website. It is in English. They have an English version. A little hard to understand maybe in parts, but it's improved a lot. And you can put it in order. I believe you can pre-order them for like a year in advance. You have to put in maybe a percentage of the payment, and then you pay the rest when they ship the board. Well worth it. Maybe in the future I can go into details on some of their other board designs, but if you're kind of a big guy and you like the riding style that I explained, I highly recommend the X1. It will not let you down. Drive safe, everybody.